Welcome back to the Calculated Risk Podcast. I am Tyler Shoemaker, joined as always by Kelley Ford. Kelley, I can't even talk. I'm so excited to get to this Week 4 slate. I've been looking forward to this all day. Did my prep work, got my bets in. I'm ready to go. This is going to be such a great weekend, such a great slate of games to watch, to enjoy, to maybe sprinkle a few bucks on. Not you, of course, but first off, how excited are you for this slate after what we deemed was a less than stellar slate last week?
I'm always excited for college football Saturday. We wait all year for these things, but I am extra excited for this one, Tyler. With my watchability scores, I can put basically every single game involving an FBS team on a scale of 0 to 10. How watchable is it? How excitable is it? How pumped should you be? Last week, you mentioned it maybe wasn't the deepest or highest quality slate. Still a good college football Saturday. They all are. But the best game last week in my watchability scores was an 8.9 out of 10. This week, Tyler, we have 4 games that grade out as a 9.0 or better. So basically what I'm saying is this week, the number 5 game is just as good as what last week's number 1 game was. Again, we don't know how these games are going to play out, but looking at the factors before the game that we have available to us, this week is going to be very exciting. I'm always in front of the TVs from noon Eastern until well past midnight. I might not even get up to go to the bathroom here. I might have to I don't even know what's going to happen, dude. It's going to be amazing. I am not getting off the couch. It's going to be so fun.
Yeah, with the TV setup that you have, I wouldn't get off the couch either. We gotta do a Calculated Risk live show from your basement at some point.
Come on up to Indiana, man.
All right, well, let's get into it. So our first, marquee matchup is going to be the NBC primetime game, 7:00 Saturday night. We've got Ohio State heading to Notre Dame. These teams played last year in a tight game in Ohio Stadium. So the betting line right now, Ohio State -3 with an over/under of 55.5. Kelley, I will let you do the honors and kick us off with this one.
It is the game of the week. It's the number 2 highest rated game for me of the entire season by my watchability scores. It is only behind the Red River Shootout as things stand currently. Tyler, this is the 3rd straight week that I have a new number 1 team in the power ratings, as we talked about on our week 3 recap show. I said it then and I'll say it again. It feels a little bit like nobody wants this title, which again, hey, that's just the season of college football that we've had so far. This week, I do have the Buckeyes in the number 1 spot. You mentioned the line's -3. In the midsummer, I had it Ohio State -13.5. Last week, I had Ohio State -2. I now have it Ohio State -6.5. It's a 67% win expectancy. Ohio State has the number 4 offense in the country. They're behind 3 Pac-12 teams, actually. The defense has been very impressive. I have them number 5. However, that's only the 4th best in the Big Ten, and it's the 3rd best in the East Division, Tyler. This Big Ten East is just stacked with defenses, at least by my numbers. Ohio State is outscoring its opponents by 13.5 points per game, more than would be expected of the average top 25 team against the Buckeyes schedule. That is 6th best in the nation. This game is currently projecting as Ohio State's most difficult of the entire season. That includes the game against Penn State. That includes the game at Michigan. This is the one that the numbers view as biggest test for the Buckeyes as things stand. If we get the Kyle McCord and Buckeye offense that we got against Western last week, I don't think the Irish are going to be able to get enough stops. If we don't, it's a whole different story. On the other side of this one, Notre Dame, they have the number 6 offense, the number 9 defense. All 4 of these units are top 10 nationally. This is why you are the number 2, have the second highest watchability score of the entire regular season. The Irish are 3 points better now than they were in the preseason by my numbers. But their corresponding ranking, Tyler, is actually 1 spot worse than it was in the preseason. They're now number 13. That just goes to show you how much compression we've had at the top of the power ratings, and we haven't had teams pull away as we have in years past. Very little separates these teams based on in-season data alone. The Buckeyes are getting the edge because I still have my preseason priors in there, as we've talked about at length. Even though this game is in South Bend, I have Ohio State -6.5, a 33% chance, a 1 in 3 chance that Notre Dame pulls off the upset at home and registers one of the best wins of the season so far. I cannot wait for this game. I am nervous for this game because I think both of these teams have the ability to win it, and it should be really, really good.
Yeah, it should be. And it sounds like our numbers are very similar on this game. I project Ohio State -5.5. I project a total at 57, so I would have a slight lean to the over here in this game. Ohio State's my number 2 team versus Notre Dame, who's my number 11 team. Ohio State, I've got the Ohio State offense number 7. They've slipped quite a bit for me after starting preseason number 1 in my numbers. But I do have the defense number 2 overall. So it sounds like we have a similar top 5 in terms of our defensive rankings. Mine are just shuffled a little bit more. I think I have Michigan 3, Penn State 5. So the Big Ten East has 3 top 5 defenses in the country by both of our numbers, it sounds like. So stacked division. Notre Dame coming into this game with the number 8 overall offense. So we've got the number 7 offense versus number 8 offense, and the number 2 defense versus the number 26 defense for Notre Dame. So, my numbers really did not like the defensive performance against NC State. And then again, giving up 17 points last week to Central Michigan, who I only project to average about 20 points per game. So couple of poor defensive ratings the last couple of games from Notre Dame here coming into this. And one thing that I really wanted to point out is I think there's been this huge public perception that, Notre Dame has just outplayed Ohio State to this point. We've kind of heard the narratives around that all season here so far. But if I just use the on-field data from 2023, I still would make Ohio State a 4.5 point favorite in this game. So my numbers don't quite bear that out, that Notre Dame has been far superior. Their schedules have been similar. I looked, NC State's about 5 points ahead of Indiana, which, so that's like a somewhat comparable game for these two teams. Otherwise, it's been, each have played an FCS team and then a lesser Power 5, FBS team. So all in all, again, Ohio State minus 5.5, projected total of 57. That's a 65% win probability for Ohio State here in this game. Moving on to our next game, we're going to go to my neck of the woods in South Carolina, where Florida State is going to come to Death Valley. Clemson obviously did not look good in week 1 against Duke. They've had kind of issues finishing drives, even since that game. I hadn't looked closely at this, but one thing that was pointed out to me is Charleston Southern only scored 13 total points against North Greenville University, which is 30 minutes up the road from my house, which is a very, very small college. They scored 14 in the first half against Clemson. So I'll kick us off here on this game, because the thing that jumps out to me for all of the public heads talking about, what's wrong with the Clemson offense and is the quarterback, is the play calling. The thing that sticks out to me with Clemson is their defense. So I've got Clemson number 25 overall. Their offense is number 17, which is respectable, probably about what people would expect. But I've got the defense number 46. My numbers have not liked their defensive performances so far. That is the most eye-popping thing to me. They're 3 points above FBS average in my defensive ratings. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on with this potent Florida State offense with Jordan Travis, who by all accounts is expected to be healthy after getting banged up last week. Obviously the receiving core, Trey Benson at running back. Florida State has my number 5 offense going against this number 46 defense. And to me, that's where the difference in this game is going to lie. I project this game Florida State minus 7 with a total of 62. The line currently sits Florida State minus 2.5 with an over-under of 55. So I give Florida State a 70% chance to win this game. They're my number 1 team in the ACC. Clemson's my number 4 team in the ACC. And again, now that we're getting to this midpoint and I'm almost all the way to using only in-season data, I like to throw that out there as just a reference point. Using in-season data only, I would have Florida State as an 11-point favorite in this spot. Kelly, what do you got on this?
I'll get to that defensive comment about Clemson here in a second, because I think our models are viewing them a little bit differently to this point of the season, at least. This is the game of the year in the ACC, Tyler. It's the one we've had circled all summer. If you would have told me in June that one of these teams is going to have one loss coming into this game, I wouldn't have been that surprised. If you would have told me in June that it was Clemson that would have the loss, I would have been pretty surprised. Coming into this season, my numbers assigned a 62% chance for Clemson to make the ACC championship game. That was best in the conference. 56% chance for Florida State. That was second best in the conference. Now, the Seminoles are up to a 68% chance. That's best in the ACC. The Tigers are now at a 10% chance. That is on the outside looking in as things stand. If Florida State wins this game, they jump to an 82% chance to make it to Charlotte, With a loss, it's still a 50-50 proposition for me because Florida State is the number one power rated team in the ACC. For Clemson, I mentioned they have that 10% chance currently. A win more than doubles it. It's up to a 22% chance. So still less than a 1 in 4% chance, or 1 in 4 chance for them. It's because they still have a difficult schedule within the conference slate there. Also, though, these numbers the percentage I'm giving are not assuming any increase or change to the power ratings. And we know we're going to have that. So if Clemson wins this game, more likely than not, their power rating is going to improve, which would improve these percentages. But all else equal, 22% chance with a win. With a loss, Tyler, all the way down to 3%. So basically, Clemson, you can just forget about it if you lose this game. You said what Vegas has. You said what your model has. My numbers have this Florida State -3. So it's a 59% win expectancy for the Seminoles. Only a 32% chance that the average top 25 team would be 3-0 against Florida State's schedule. That's second best in the entire country behind only Texas. The Seminoles are outscoring their opponents by 12.1 points per game, more than would be expected of the average top 25 team against the Noles schedule. When you combine those two things together, Florida State comes out as my number 2 most deserving team to this point of the year, behind only Texas. Really strong resume for Florida State so far. But games aren't won and lost using resumes. We need to use the power ratings for that. I have Florida State power rated number 7. The offense is number 9. The defense is number 21. The only negative that I can really talk about with the Noles, at least right now, is their most recent form. Florida State's coming off by far their worst performance of the year, a 31-29 win at Boston College. The Noles are down 4.7 points for me from a week ago, as we talked about in our week 3 recap. Only Oklahoma State was downgraded more than Florida State this past week in my model. For Clemson, there have definitely been more negatives than positives this season. They entered the year number 7 in the power ratings with the number 18 offense. The Tigers lost to Duke by 21 before picking up wins, as you said, at home against FCS Charleston Southern and a weak FAU team. The offense has been downgraded to number 30. The defense, here's where we disagree a little bit, Tyler. They came into the year number 8. I dropped into number 16 after the Duke game. They've now rebounded a bit by my numbers in terms of what I'm looking for with success rates and efficiencies. I have this Clemson team number 7 on the defensive side of the ball right now. Wow. So that we do have a little discrepancy there, or a big discrepancy there. The truth is probably somewhere in between, if I'm being honest, listening to what you had to say about it and then knowing what goes into my numbers too. Overall, I have Clemson number 15. This game should be strength on strength. Top 10 FSU offense for me against the top 10 Clemson defense. I do like the Seminoles defense more than the Tigers offense. This game's in Death Valley, and I expect that will make some difference here. Although maybe not as much of a difference at noon as this game would have had, as the environment would have had if this was played later in the day. So Clemson fans can't be happy with the networks for making this a noon kickoff. I have Florida State -3. It's a 41% chance that Clemson pulls off the upset at home. If the Tigers fall to 0-2 in conference play, if you would have told me that a month ago, I wouldn't have believed you that they'd be 0-2 in conference play. I just would have said, no, you're wrong. You're lying to me. But 2, it would be a knockout blow. Clemson's season, I mean, all their goals are gone, and the calendar hasn't even hit October yet, Tyler.
Yeah, that's hard to fathom. Just to wrap this up on the Clemson defensive thing, I wonder how much of this discrepancy. Obviously, we're looking at limited data points. My model is more aggressive in using those on-field data points so far. I also wonder how much of that FCS game, because we're both kind of new in the FCS space. So I wonder if it's a formula difference there, because I just looked. Clemson had a -11 defensive grade by my numbers for that game. So I wonder if that's kind of the difference here that's throwing it off.
Very well could be, because I actually upgraded the Clemson defense following that game, which I don't feel great about now that you mentioned what Charleston Southern was able to do against little sisters of the poor up the road, you said there. Yeah. So I might have to take a look at how I'm adjusting after FCS with that one. But that's a really good point. Yeah, 1 out of the 3 in-season games was against an FCS team. Yep.
Yeah. So I bet that's where that discrepancy is lying. So, just something to keep an eye on. Obviously, as we've talked about, like we give you these data points to watch the game with an expectation of what to look for. So that's something to keep an eye on. Like, how does the Clemson defense hold up? Like, do they look more like the number 7 defense, like Kelley's got them, or like the number 46 defense, like my numbers have them? So that'll be something fun to keep an eye on here this weekend. Moving on to our last marquee game. This is a game that I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I did bet Florida State earlier this week -1. I would play that up to 3. Moving on to Ole Miss at Alabama, another game that I bet already this week. I took Ole Miss +7. The line bounced around. It's now back to Alabama -7 with an over-under of 55.5. Kelly, I'll let you go first on this. I do have thoughts. I'll let you go first on this.
Right on. I've got Alabama -5.5 in this one, Tyler. 65% win expectancy. It must be said, though, this does not look like an Alabama team that we've seen for the past 15 years under Nick Saban. This is the worst Alabama team in my historical team rating set since 2010. The Tide have not looked this pedestrian, if you will. And I use that term kind of loosely because I still have them power rated number 5. But they haven't looked this number 5-ish since 2010 when they actually finished that year number 5, I believe, in my rating set. They're down 4 points from last week. It's the 4th biggest downgrade of the week, as we talked about earlier this week in a different episode. They're down 7 points, a touchdown, from just 2 weeks ago when I had the Tide number 1 in the power ratings. Again, 3 different number 1s in 3 weeks. They now have the number 19 offense, the number 8 defense. Even still, there is not a single game the rest of the way in which my raw numbers make Alabama less than a field goal favorite. The model is slow to react, though. I firmly believe Alabama is an outlier in the negative direction now. For the first time, I have not been able to say that previously about an Alabama team coached by Nick Saban. They're usually an outlier in the positive direction, if an outlier at all. They are now an outlier in the negative direction. The model can't downgrade Alabama fast enough as we try to phase out the preseason data, because that level at which we expected them to play in the preseason, or in their preseason input, that component is here. They're playing at a level that's way down here, as I'm using above and below hand motions for those listening. Sorry, I know that's not helpful. If they continue to play at the level they're playing on the field, they will continue to be downgraded significantly, because that difference between the model's expectation coming in and what they're actually doing is very significant. So the offense has been stagnant. The quarterback play has not been good, especially when Bryce Young, Mac Jones, Jalen Hurts, Tua, that's the bar there in recent years. And you are not only are you not getting, you're clearing that bar, you're not getting close to that bar. You need to get better quarterback play at Alabama if you are going to continue to operate as one of the top programs in the entire country. I'm sure they are working on that every single second of the day in Tuscaloosa. Ole Miss, on the other hand, they've looked really good. They've risen 6.6 points in the rating since the preseason. It's the 7th biggest upgrade I've given to any team during the year with the model. 62% chance the average top 25 team would be 3-0 against Ole Miss's schedule. That is the 10th best record achievement in the nation. And the Rebels have been outscoring their opponents by 17.7 points per game, more than would be expected of the average top 25 team against the Rebels schedule. That's 3rd best in the nation. You put those things together, you get the number 7 most deserving team in the country. Ole Miss is power rated number 12. They have a top 10 offense, top 25 defense by my numbers. The unit matchups are pretty close. This essentially boils down to home field advantage plus a little bit extra there. I have Alabama -5.5, 35% chance for Ole Miss to pull off the upset. Tyler, I'm honestly surprised that Vegas has Alabama as a larger favorite than I do. I thought when I updated my numbers Sunday morning and I see Alabama -5.5, I was like, I bet Vegas is like 3.5 or something like that. It's surprising to me because I thought the public would be more inclined to view these last 2 games even less favorably than the model has. If we keep everything else equal, Alabama currently a 41% chance to make it to Atlanta. With a win, it jumps to 52%. With a loss, it's down to 21%. I can't remember the last time an Alabama team had a 1 in 5 chance or worse to make it to Atlanta this early in the season. That's what's on the table if they lose this game at home. Ole Miss currently a 15% chance. That more than doubles to 32% if they win this game. If they lose it, just a 6% chance to make it to Atlanta, because now you're a game back. You've lost the tiebreaker to Alabama, and you are power rated lower than the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, this week, this game in particular is going to be a very good test for the numbers because, like you said, I bet Ole Miss already at +7. The line ticked down. I think it touched 6 at one point. There's a lot of well-respected bettors that I know that I trust their opinion that they felt obligated from a value standpoint, from like a stock market type of mentality, to buy the Alabama stock while it was at its rock bottom, which was -6 in this game. So I know some respected bettors that did lay 6.5 with Alabama in the spot. I have to trust my numbers here. I project this Alabama -1 total of 59.5. So I lean slightly to the over, which also would make me nervous with this Alabama offense. I've got Ole Miss number 6 overall for me. Alabama, after being number 1 a couple weeks ago, dropped to number 13 for me. Ole Miss coming into this game with the number 3 offense in my numbers, number 32 on defense though. So, a little more mediocre there. Alabama's offense has dropped to number 14, and that's kind of in a free fall at this point. The defense still is number 6, so the defense still holding strong there. I've got Ole Miss as my number 1 team in the SEC West. Alabama's my number 2 team in the SEC West. So this is, essentially an early season SEC West Division championship game, if you will. Using just the on-field data, I would make Ole Miss -9 here.
Wow.
I think they've far exceeded what Alabama's done on the field so far. So, like I said, this will be a very good test of like the holding the priors in versus letting them go. Obviously, you don't make a sweeping judgment off of one game, but this will be an interesting kind of data point for that. And one point that I was thinking of earlier today is we've seen Lane Kiffin have worse teams give much better Bama teams all they can handle, even at Alabama. I think Lane Kiffin is the perfect kind of coach to be able to take advantage of, and his defensive coordinator, Pete Golding, was at Alabama previously. So I think from a coaching standpoint, obviously from the on-field performance standpoint, like everything to me screams Ole Miss in this game. I understand the guys that bet Alabama based on like, well, you've never, like, literally last week, the line on this game was 11.5. So I get it from that standpoint. But to your point, Kelly, I don't think models and odds makers have been able to keep up with how much worse Alabama's been on the field relative to their preseason expectations. So I get it, but I'm a numbers guy. I'm gonna trust the numbers. And like I said, I already put my money where my mouth is here and bet Ole Miss +7 in this game. But either way, I'm looking forward to watching it and seeing if Alabama really is as bad as they've looked this first month of the season. All right, moving on. So those are our 3 marquee games. Those are the ones that everyone's going to be tuned into. We did want to hit quickly on a few other kind of high-profile games, and all of these games involve teams that are in the TSI top 25. So, run through these quickly. So we'll go Penn State and Iowa. Penn State currently a 14.5-point favorite. Over/under currently 40. I project this game Penn State -16. I bet this line earlier in the week at Penn State -13. I would play that to 14, but I don't know that you're going to get a 14 again at this point because I've seen it go 14.5, 15, but I would play it up to 14. I give Penn State an 87% chance to win this game. Penn State's my number 5 team overall, and Iowa is my number 36 team overall. Kelly, thoughts on this game?
Yep, I got Penn State -16 here at home against Iowa. Penn State, for me, comes in power rated number 6. The offense is the number 15 unit. The defense is the number 4 unit. For Iowa, I have them power rated number 33. Defense is number 1. So again, this is a number 1 defense and number 4 defense. A lot of defense in this game. The offense, though, this is not going to surprise anybody. Power rated number 83 for the Iowa Hawkeyes. That's the storyline here. That's the difference in this game. If Iowa just had a average FBS offense, this team would be the clear favorite in the Big Ten West. Right, they're neck and neck with Wisconsin for me right now. If the offense was just more competent, not just this year, but the last 5 years, 10 years, Iowa would be in a much better position year in and year out to have the success that they want to have. I don't see it. It's the whiteout game. Penn State's going to be ready, and it's a 87% chance for Penn State to win it, 13% chance that Iowa goes into Happy Valley and comes out with the win. If they do, that'll be huge for their chances to make the Big Ten championship game, getting a road win. Now, granted, it's not in their division, but again, that'll be a great confidence boost for this team moving forward when they should be big favorites against Michigan State and Purdue before having to go to Wisconsin in Week 7. So I like Penn State in this one by about 16.
Yeah, so our numbers are identical on that game. And one last note on this game. I think there is some rain expected in the forecast for this game, so keep that in mind as you place your wagers for this game heading into the weekend. Our next game, UCLA and Utah. I'm really interested in this game because the line currently sits Utah -5. It was -7 earlier in the week, in which I bet UCLA +7. I project UCLA as a 2-point favorite here. They've been much better on the field. Now, the hard thing is Cameron Rising, the Utah quarterback, hasn't really played. He might be back this week. They're pretty close to the vest as far as their injury statuses go there at Utah. So that obviously could and will make a difference. I don't know that it makes a 7-point difference. I don't know that Cam Rising's worth 7 points to a point spread. So I do feel pretty good about my UCLA position. I give UCLA a 53% chance to win here as 5-point underdogs.
Yeah, I've got Utah as the favorite, 3.5 points. So not quite as much, 60% chance to win. Cam Rising, that's the big question you talked about there. If he plays, of course, you like Utah better. If he doesn't, now you're bringing it back into question. This stat, though, is interesting. The last time Utah lost a game at home was the 2020 COVID season. Before that, it was 2018. I mean, this Utah team does not lose at home. I think that's absolutely fascinating. Number 17 power rated. The offense is number 28. The defense is number 11. That's the best in the Pac-12. For UCLA, they have improved this season, up from number 31 in the preseason. I now have number 22 in the power ratings. The offense is top 10 now. The defense is number 27. So these unit matchups, just on face value with the ranking, not the rating, UCLA offense number 10 versus Utah defense number 11. Utah offense number 28 against UCLA defense number 27. Basically, that's a wash on either side. Now, again, Cam Rising, is he playing? That makes a difference. It's home field advantage, essentially, is what we're looking at here, plus maybe a little bit extra from preseason weights. Give me Utah, minus 3.5, 60% chance to win. UCLA, they have a very favorable conference schedule. If they get this win, they are a serious contender, I would say. I mean, at least a serious dark horse contender to make it to Las Vegas, because this schedule does set up nicely. They avoid Oregon. They avoid Washington on the schedule. So, yeah, it could be good for UCLA if they're able to get this tough win in Salt Lake.
Yeah, that winning streak stat is crazy. I remember that from when I bet Utah against Florida in week 1, and I remember seeing that. That's crazy. All right, our last game, the talk of college football right now, Colorado Buffaloes playing against Oregon. You know, when I was doing my work on Sunday updating numbers and I put my projection out, and I was like, man, I've got Oregon minus 21.5. Like, is that right? I was like a little nervous about what the market was going to be, and it was pretty much on the line right now. Oregon minus 20.5, total of 70.5, which I tweeted earlier this week of a stat of totals that are above 66 and then above 70. I mean, the under hit rate on those high totals is like absurd. So, I mean, so far this season, I think it's totals 66 or higher have gone under 11 of 13 games. So just something to keep in mind here. Never would encourage you to blindly bet anything, but, you know, just something to look at as a potential angle here. Like I said, I project Oregon minus 21.5. I project the total at 64.5. So quite a bit of value here on the under, according to my numbers. I give Oregon a 93% chance to win. This doesn't even factor in the fact that Travis Hunter is not going to play. So, you know, I would say he's probably worth maybe 3 points here to the spread. So I like Oregon in this game big. I definitely think they win. I won't be surprised at all if they cover this 20.5.
I'm right there with you, basically across the board there. Last week I had this game Oregon minus 20. I think the market was somewhere around 14. This week they come out minus 21. My number's Oregon minus 21.5. So I did not really move that much from last week to this week. The market certainly did, reacting to that close call against Colorado State. It's interesting to me, this game, not from the power rating side because Oregon's the clear favorite, but from a resume side, Colorado, they're currently my number 4 team in my most deserving rankings. Oregon's number 11. These are two teams who have accomplished quite a bit on the field, given the schedule that they faced and then how they performed in those games. Because you can look at Oregon's and say, well, have they really played anybody? Well, I'd say, yeah, at Texas Tech. I know Texas Tech isn't having the season they wanted. They're still a pretty good power rated team. So that's still an impressive win. And then they've just throttled their other 2 opponents, Portland State and Hawaii. So this offense is number 2 in the country for me. The defense is mid-30s. Oregon's number 11 overall. Colorado, much, much better than I expected. Only Oklahoma has risen more from the preseason to now in my power ratings. They're still number 59 nationally overall, top 45 offense. The defense, I have concerns. They're number 93. But yeah, for me, it's 21.5, 93% chance to win for Oregon, just like you, 7% chance for Colorado to pull off the upset. And I can just see some people right now screaming at their computer or on their phone saying, yeah, but what'd your numbers say about the TCU game? All right, I'll fess up. My numbers gave Colorado a 6% chance to beat TCU on the road. Now I'm giving them a 7% chance to beat Oregon. So let's say, there you go. They have a better chance. Technically, yes, I agree with you. I will say the odds of Lightning striking twice and you winning 2 games in which you have a pre-game win expectancy of less than 10% is not good at all. I will also say we know a lot more about this Oregon team right now in week 4 than we knew about that TCU team in week 1. So even though I'm saying there's a 1% better chance that Colorado pulls off the upset here, I don't think there's a better chance that Colorado pulls off the upset. You're going into Autzen, which is probably a more difficult place to play than in TCU, which, again, nothing against TCU. They were in the national championship game last year. I just think Autzen's going to be ready, especially now that the media hype train has got Colorado front and center 2 weeks in a row. Big noon kickoff, I think, is going to be at this game. So, or at the Colorado game, I should say. There's a lot with Colorado. If they pull off this upset, I'll put my hand up. I'll say, okay, let's take them seriously in the Pac-12. I don't think it's going to happen. And quite frankly, I won't be too upset if we take Colorado out of the spotlight for just a minute. And it's not to diminish what they've achieved. It's been a great season. They are my number 1 biggest overachiever right now to this point of the season. 2.0 more wins than I projected to this point with my preseason realistic expectations. I was too low on them coming in. It was the same thing with USC last year. I'm learning how to deal with this roster turnover. I'll get better in the future. They're much better than I thought, but they're not quite as good as I don't think some people are saying. No problem with them being ranked. I'd have them ranked number 4. But from a power rating standpoint, they're not in that same conversation. Win this week, I'll change my mind.
Yep. Huge distinction there. Well said. I mean, it's worth noting, we've talked about how it's been hard to keep up with Colorado and how they've performed on the field relative to the preseason expectation. But I mean, they were 24-point favorites last week and went to overtime. So like the market has more than caught up at this point, I think. So I think we have a much better handle, to your point. I think we have a much better handle on them and who they're going to be playing from here on out. And also, yeah, TCU is not as good as we thought coming into the season. They got a lot of benefit of the doubt from their success last year. Hasn't quite worked out as well. I've already bet against them again this week with SMU. So, but again, looking forward to that one, of course, and the rest of the slate. I think that's going to do it for us here today. Looking forward to this weekend. Hope everybody enjoys all these huge games that are going to have conference title implications, playoff implications. It's going to be great. We'll be back on Monday with our recap to talk about what we saw and how the K Ford ratings and the TSI upgraded and downgraded teams accordingly. For Kelley Ford, I'm Tyler Shoemaker, and that was Calculated Risk.